Something different and fun for you guys. We're going to be taking this virgin hair and doing this really pretty lilac silver color. It's literally been years since she has done anything with her hair, and I ran a model call on Instagram for $100 for this fun color that I wanted to do, and she came in for it. So for this service, we're using Schwarzkopf Blonde Me with 20 volume and Olaplex for lightening. Because it has been such a long time that she's done anything to her hair, I didn't want to overdo it, and I wanted to maintain her natural color with just a little bit of soft dimension. So I am going to be doing some larger sections and leaving a lot of her natural subsection in between. So for this under section, just for when she like pulls her hair up, I wanted to get some pieces kind of diagonally at the nape of the neck to get some coverage for if she pulls her hair up, or just for this little section that when, you know, her hair falls over her shoulders, she'll get a little bit of variation in color. But again, we're not going for anything too heavy or bright. I also want to say that for this whole service, especially in the underneath part, I might do a little bit more blended as we get to the top. But for this whole service, you'll see that I'm doing some pretty defined weaves. And I'm backcombing everything because I want to make sure that this blends with her roots pretty good. We're not going all the way up to the scalp, especially down here at the bottom. We're staying within an inch or two from her scalp though. Just because it's been years since she's gotten her hair done. We're not anticipating that she's going to come back anytime soon. So whatever we're doing, I just want to make sure that she has easy grow out. Nothing that's going to look like she has to come in anytime soon. Basically, I want this to be able to grow out for years and not look bad. And so to be able to do that, you have to do some really big, I don't want to do root shadow. So backcombing it and creating that natural shadow will help minimize a line of demarcation. And you can see that I'm really staying, honestly, probably 2 to 3 inches off the scalp. To add some connection, we're just going to go straight across to make a triangle section. And this is all we're going to do for this lower bottom section of the hair. Again, you can see that I'm doing some more of defined weaves. And basically, if you go in and you're doing a minimal work, we're not trying to do a huge color overhaul on this hair, especially to do a lived-in color where somebody is maintaining their natural brown. If you go in with too fine of a weave or too fine of a slice, that's going to get lost in the hair. If you're not going in and doing back to back to back foils, you need to go in there with a little bit more heavy-handed of a weave. So you'll see in these sections that I'm doing a little bit chunkier of a weave because I want her to have some defined ribbons of color, because we're not doing a whole bunch of foil work on her head. So the foils that we are doing needs to pack a little bit more of a punch. So having a bit more of a chunkier weave is definitely going to give her some stronger pieces of ribbons that we need to show through. I apologize, you guys. I have a stand that I use to record and I'm able to move it around everywhere. But what I've noticed is when my hand or arm comes in the shot, it focuses on my arm and then everything else gets blurry. So I tried to push it over to the side and I pushed it too far. So I apologize that you're getting a fourth. Oh, here we go. I noticed. But so I apologize if there's at any point throughout the rest of the video where the visual isn't very great, but I tried to be mindful of it and check in on it and see okay, what are we seeing right now. I was able to catch it this time, but so I apologize ahead of time if there's any shots and you're girl, we're watching the floor. So anyways. Okay, that last foil that we did was just below the crown section, and now we're gonna go just right where if she has a cowlick and her hair parts. This is kind of right in that area. That way she has coverage if the wind is blowing or hair opens up or whatever. These are just going to be a few foils to give her some color through the top section. But again, we're not going like too heavy in this area. And you can see here that I'm doing a larger weave again. Also, the foils that I'm using are the Framar Big Daddy foils. These things wrap around the whole head, and I like it because it just gives you like less work, because you can just do one huge foil and call it good. So again, I wouldn't recommend using this if you're doing something really meticulous and you have to go straight up to the scalp, because it can slip a little bit when you're wrapping it all the way around the head. But if you're doing more of a lived-in color like this, then it's okay, because it's, you know, it's not really going to slip very much. You're already a couple inches off the scalp, and you know, it'll be fine. So again, we talked about wanting to make sure that she can go years without feeling like she needs to come in to get her hair done. So I'm not putting anything in the top veil of her hair. I am going to go paint through the ends, because I still want her to have some color on the top, since we're not really doing any layers. She has one length hair. I just want to make sure that it's not on the top and it's not going to grow out bad or have a line or anything like that. So everything is going to be her natural on the top, but these foils you can see underneath are going to show through, and that's where the color is going to show through more, is like in the movement of her hair. But she's still going to have some color on the top section of her hair. It's just going to be more through the ends. All right, now we're over to the sides of her head, and I'm not doing my standard hairline foils where it's, you know, making a bright money piece really bright around her face and everything. Again, she wants to be able to not feel like she has any grow out. So we're just going to basically work our way straight up the side of the head. But you can see I'm staying probably down 3 to 4 inches off of her face. That way, you know, she's not going to have any bad grow out or anything. And back combing the hair is really going to ensure that it softens it. There's no heavy line. It's just going to create a little bit more of a natural root shadow, instead of having to go in and like having to paint one and formulate for a whole root shadow or whatever. Actually, when I do my toning, I'm kind of doing my application to have a root shadow without having to actually like do 2 separate formulations. So you guys will see that when I do my toning section. But yeah, I usually tone this way because I don't like having to always have 2 different formulations. I'll usually go through and do the roots first, leave the ends out, and then the last like 5 minutes I'll pull the color through the ends. That way it doesn't sit on there and get full coverage. You know, depending on what the color is, but like for this color I knew that I could do that and be fine. So anyways, I'm gonna be flip-flopping back and forth on the sides of her head, and I usually do this when somebody has a little bit more of a darker hair color, because I want to make sure that the sides are lifting at the same time. I also, because I'm not doing like back to back foils, I'm doing just like 2 or 3 foils on the side. I want to make sure that I'm doing the same spot on each side. And if I just do like one full side and then go back and do the other side, I know I'm going to keep flipping back and forth and being like, wait, what did I do for the last foil? Was it at the temple? Was it above it? Was it below the temple? Like, where did I do it? So I just like to do one foil, know that I'm not going directly above the ear, but like maybe a 1/4 inch above the ear. And then I'll remember that for the next side, because I just did it on that side. And then I'll do this foil, the second foil on this side again. And then I'll flip back to the other side, you know, how heavy of a weave did I do? It's just too much for me to remember. I get forgetful, and then I always have to keep coming back and like double checking my work and seeing what was the last foil that I did on that side. I can't remember. So if I go on this side and then switch back and forth, like it's fresh in my head what I just did, and I don't have to worry about it. So anyways, so if you see me working back and forth, that's why. I don't like the people that go through and do a whole half of the head and then they come back and do the other side. It stresses me out because I'm like, how did you remember what you did? It's one thing to like just go through and do like a huge foil where you're just like going straight up to the root for the whole thing. But when it's like you see people that are doing like, okay, for this foil, we're going to go straight across and then we're going to angle this one, but we're back combing this one and we're doing slices and weaves. It's like, oh my gosh. Do you just do the same pattern on everybody so you just know what every side is? Because, man, that gives me anxiety. It stresses me out. What if I forget? What if I don't know what I'm doing? So, yes, if you see me go back and forth, that's why. I do want to say, as I'm getting closer up to the top of her head, I am doing her foils a little bit tighter to the scalp, and that's because everything's going to be underneath her top part of her hair, but I don't want it to be so far off the scalp that it like completely just falls down to the side. So these next few foils that I'm doing over the top of her head are going to be a little bit tighter to the scalp. All right, for this next section, you're going to see that when I take her hair, I'm kind of laying her hair down to see how it falls. And that's how I'm deciding how to grab this next section. I do want it to kind of have a little bit of color that falls over her face so she can see through to the highlights. But I want to make sure, again, that it's directly underneath the top veil of her hair. You can also see that I have some really defined weaves. This is what I'm talking about. We want to see some more defined ribbons in the hair. Not too much of a blended weave because we're really only doing like 2 foils in the top. So the sections do need to be a little bit thicker and a little bit more bold and defined to be able to notice them at all. So I'm going to finish doing these foils. We're going to basically do the same thing that I did here. We're going to stay directly under where her part falls to make sure that she has a veil covering these foils that are going to fall right on top. But you are going to see that I am going a little bit closer up to the scalp. I want to say and touch base on the model call because I know people sometimes are like, how do I do a model call? What do we do? So basically, I saw this color that GuyTang had posted, and they actually did not have the same exact color when I had gone a few times to the beauty supply. So I had to create my own version of this. But the color was so pretty and was such a different take on, you know, doing a fall color. It was like a misty mauve, like kind of a like lavender mauve tone. And I thought, oh my God, this is so different than what I normally do. I would love to do something like this. So I put a model call out on my Instagram and I just said, hey, this is what I want to do. This is the exact color that I want to do. Here's a picture of what it's supposed to look like. And $100 charge to help cover costs of product. So basically, when you're doing a model call, you need to set out specific requirements. For this, I said needs to have, you know, pretty natural dark hair, no color on your hair because I need to be able to lighten it to a certain level. You know, we have to lighten this to like a level 9 to get that really cool lavender tone. If it has any color buildup on the hair that it stains and it has too much brassiness or warmth when it lifts, then it's not going to be the color that we need it to be. So make sure when you're doing a model call that you're very specific in what you're looking for. And it's totally fine to say, hey, this isn't going to work for everybody. So yeah, I said, hey, I'm doing a model call. This is the requirements, and message me if you're interested in this. Actually, let me see if I can go back on my Instagram and find my model call that I put out, and then I'll insert a little picture. All right, here's what we did for the whole service. You can see that I went through and painted through some on the ends on just the top overlay of the hair. That way she has a little bit more color showing through, since the majority of everything is going to fall underneath. So here we can go check out and see how is your hair lightening so far. And this is what I love about Schwarzkopf. Like, look, I mean, you can barely see the hair because it just lightens so much that it blends with the foil. Schwarzkopf just has such good lift. So that's why I always use it. It's a little bit warmer through the ends, which is fine. You can always tuck those ends up underneath the hair so it insulates a little bit better. And here's the top foil. And I know you guys are going to see this and say, look at how harsh of a line that looks of the bleach. But remember, we backcombed it. And when that back comb is brushed back down, it's going to blur that line and everything's going to blend really nicely. And you're not even going to see that there's like a harsh line there anymore. We did feather it through the rest of the hair, but because that was basically straight up to the scalp, it's kind of hard to feather that close to the scalp. So that's why it looks like a little bit more of a harsh line than the rest of the foils. But we did back comb, and that's going to soften the root area. All right, we're going to pull these foils out, wash her hair, and then do our formulation. Now, remember the formulation. I had to come up with my own 6 Dusty Lavender and 6 SS Silver Smoke, Smoky Silver. Can't remember, something along the lines though. And the other color that I wanted to use was the Misty Mauve, which was definitely a little bit more of a dusty, like purple color. I think because I had to use more of the silver, the SS, whatever it is again. It kind of gave it more of a silver cast than I was anticipating, even though I only used a small amount of it in my formulation. It's still really pretty in the end, but I just wish that I had access to that Misty Mauve. I think it would have had more of a lavender tone, which this does have a lavender tone. It's just definitely more of a silver lavender tone. So for her application, we're going through and basically hitting her roots. I want to make sure that because this is a level 6, it is going to grab pretty dark in the root area, which is exactly, well, the root all the way through the mid shaft, which is exactly what I want. But I do want to have a little bit more dimension and lighter pieces through the ends. So we're going to do probably like the 6 inches of her hair from where the line of demarcation, and then 6 inches down from that. Well, maybe a little bit further. And we're going to let that process for a while. This is going to have her root and mid section of her hair grab a little bit darker. That's going to have it blend a lot more with her natural color. It's not going to have any harsh lines anywhere in the hair. Everything's going to blend really nicely. But then over time, it is going to lighten up, and but at that point, her hair will like have grown out quite a bit, even though again, we did this to where it's going to blend really nicely with her natural color. But I just wanted it to have, I didn't want her to feel like, oh my gosh, I've got all these light pieces all over my hair. I wanted it to be just like the picture that I posted from GuyTang. She basically just has a lot of like the brightness through the ends of her hair and some soft dimension through like the top area. That way, you know, we're into fall, like we don't need to have a whole bunch of brightness. So that's why I did my formulation this way. And I just mixed once. I didn't have to go back through or anything. I'm just doing the root and midsection, letting it process for about 15 minutes before I go back. And like you can see how dark it is already. And then once that's been sitting there, now I'm going to go through and run it through the ends and just let it sit for like the last few minutes. And you'll see that it covers it. It just tints it slightly, but it's not nearly as dark as the rest of her hair. All right, you can see now through the top part of her hair how much of a dark purple color that she has. This is oxidized too, but you can see that the ends are still sitting out. So I'm going to start dragging this through the ends and letting it finish processing, and then we'll let it sit here and then wash it with cold water, because If you guys don't know, hot water causes the color to fade a lot faster. So make sure you're letting your clients know to let the color sit for at least 3 days. That way it gives time for everything to settle. And then also wash the hair with as cold of water as they could stand. If they use hot water, it's going to cause it to fade a lot more, especially since this is a fashion color. It can definitely tend to fade out a lot faster. So using as cold of water as possible is the best way to go for maintaining these colors. And again, I only charge the $100 model call fee for this service, but I would say that if you're somebody that's doing this color, something similar like this on somebody with a haircut and kind of doing like a minimal lived in foil, this took about 3 hours. And I would say a fair charge would be like $275, whatnot, depending on how much bleach. If they have longer, thicker hair, then maybe $300. But I think $275, $300 is a fair price for this. Maybe it would definitely be $300 if I had to go through and do a whole different formulation for the roots. But because I did it to where I'm just using the one formulation for the roots and then just dragging it through the ends and having it processed at different time frames, I only had to use one formulation. So if I had to mix a different one, then maybe I would charge like the $300. Keep in mind, this is also just for a partial. If you were doing like a full, I would definitely do like $350 to like $400. All right, and here's the final application, and we're just gonna let it finish to sit and process. Thank you guys so much for watching. It's good to be back. I hope you guys like this video. Remember, this is how long and natural we started out, and then here we are. Look at the after. Look at how pretty that color is. It just blends really nicely into the root. And then you have like that really pretty soft, like mauve-y, lavender, silvery color. And we'll go outside and look how pretty. You can see that color showing through a lot more in the natural light. And again, here in the root area, you can see that it blends really good with her natural color. You can just see little soft slivery pieces of dimension. So I think for somebody that hasn't colored their hair in years, this is like perfect to blend with their natural color. Here's for my Instagram stories, which follow me on Instagram if you guys aren't. Modern Blonde by Christy. I really hope you guys like this video. I hope you learned something, and I will see you guys shortly. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye.